Marry philosophy with technique, there's no ending to it. It becomes relevant at any age. So even if you take the same technique, it means something different to you because of the way you apply it and with what mind you apply it.
حابب بلش أول شيء بأنك تعرفني عن مين محمد أكتر, the academic journey, and where are you now?
Maybe first gratitude and thanks to my parents, Omar and Amal, for bringing Muhammad into this world, right? And in heritage, and of course this doesn't speak to the identity but more the background. My mother is from Palestine, Haifa, and my father is from Lebanon, Saida. And I haven't lived in either country until maybe this year in Lebanon, so it's new to me. Muhammad, I guess, is someone who's a bit of an explorer, someone who's a seeker that looks to really find completion in any way or in any form and at the deepest levels. In my academics, I've gone through a bachelor's in both business and psychology. I've taken an MBA in global management as well as an MSc in global marketing, and throughout my postgraduate degrees commenced my journey in brain education, specifically onto a master's in brain education now, both from the Korean institutes where it originates from as well as the American. So delving into both sides, the Eastern practical movement, consciousness, philosophy and trainings, as well as the Western neuroscience and findings that help modernize it into being relevant today, right? When it comes to my background, just to connect the dots a little bit, I think you may want to know this. I started out studying Eastern disciplines from the age of 4 with my martial arts. So it's been with me ever since. So movement, philosophy, that's always been there. Yeah.
Global management or marketing, masters in these two, and then you've chosen brain education as your career and the message that you want to deliver. يعني الأهل كان لهم تأثير بالسelection وبالباث, العوامل المحيطة, المجتمع, أو أنت كنت you are exploring what Maz wants أو what محمد بعد ما كان صار ماز. هذاك الوقت كان بعده محمد. محمد شو كان بده, كان عم يعمل discovery ولا كان ضايع ولا, لأنه if we look at this list it is expensive, huh?
Education in general is expensive. Yeah. I think I would have to say without a doubt probably the biggest expense I've had in my life is on education to date. And I think it should be for everybody.
Yes, perfect. if they can do,
but
if
remember,
they can afford that.
It's not to be specific to a degree. Education
in general. طب why did you choose أول شغلة, ليش صار إنه جربت? Was it planned? أنت كنت عندك هيدي الخطة إنك psychology, global management, marketing.
So
وبعدين brain education. لا لك ليش السؤال, هو السؤال يمكن رجعك شوي لفترة يمكن ما كانت واضحة فيها self exploration و self management.
Right.
بس أغلب اليوث اللي بهيدي الفترة 16 لل 21 16 لل 20 that they are trying to select الاختيار اللي حيحكمهم كل حياتهم, بيكون عندهم حابين يعرفوا تجارب الآخرين. فشو كانت التجربة, شو كانت الجيرني?
So I'm going to talk about my journey and what my thoughts were throughout it, which may seem like logic, but obviously I don't think I was in awareness of how much control to how things happened. But I'll tell you what I was thinking as I went through them. So in high school يعني كنت متميز بأكتر من مادة, and I was probably really good at design and excelling in anything that was expressive arts because my father was an artist. مع أنه هو هلأ طبيب, هو الوالدة. But he also had multiple talents and he was exceptional in art. حتى طلع الأول على جنوب, I think in one 2D drawing or something like that. And I was inspired, but there was an interesting motivation of impact. I needed to be impactful in some way. And like I needed to feel like I left a trace or it affected something. So when I looked at designers and architects, and I mean, you'd have to be 50 or 60 for you to really be recognized or renowned. Maybe that was the 10, 20 years. Now looking back, it looks like every career you need to be spending that time anyway to have that credibility or level of impact. But it drew me away from design as a career specifically. And then I went into something that was more malleable, like business. And I thought, well, you could hire the designers and you could probably tell them what you want. and then I thought, well, I mean, when you're a designer working up your ranks, you're constantly struggling through trying to create something, and then you get shut down a lot of times, but then you're full of it and your ideas don't really make sense anyway. So it comes back to the same thing, because probably a designer who has excelled, now thinking back, is probably going to become his own boss or someone else's, and they're going to have their own vision if they really want to leave an impact. So all roads lead to the same destination. That's my euphoric epiphany from having gone through that. But that was my thinking at the time. And I thought, business it is, because I felt like I could be expansive. And I didn't become a doctor because my father discouraged me from it.
Oh.
Yeah, he said, I mean, you're a really good student in a lot of things, but I mean, I don't think doctor's for you. And I think it meant maybe the character that it was. And I have to say, he was right and wrong, because what I admired in my father was how much he affected people's lives. He was an infertility doctor, so lots of people left him letters about how they changed their lives. He gave them a child, and that's big for a lot of families, So they're indebted to this person, and, portraits of him, postcards and letters and messages, and he was very much adored by his patients. I mean, that's what I saw as a kid. So I felt like he was a person of influence. He really had an effect and impact. Maybe that's what I admired in being a doctor, of being able to help so many people and have them recognize that. But then in the end, I kind of ended up being a healer of sorts myself. Maybe not through, and not as a physician, but yes, in helping and reaching out to the community and making sure that they can help themselves. So it ended up being the same thing, just maybe a different title. So that's how I chose business. But I was really interested in the mind. And I think that was always the case from the young childhood I had as a martial artist. Because even in my fights or my sparring, and he's about to fight me, and I can see the fight in his eyes. But I was always thinking about what would happen. Meaning, if I hit this kick and it lands, how would it make him feel? What would I accomplish? And that was the debate of the mind. So the debate of the mind was always always present, always there, looking further than just what happens on the surface. And the philosophy of it as well. I think the biggest takeaway from my years and years of martial arts are really the principles, the philosophies, the discipline it taught me. So these soft skills were always there, which has kind of set me up really greatly for better education. So it was kind of a build-up of accumulated different things. And when I tried philosophy, I sucked at it because I had my own philosophies that I thought were right, and that wasn't really good with the teacher. So he gave me a failing grade, and so I thought, screw this, I don't do failing grades. Again, my thinking at the time. And then I chose psychology, and what it did for me is all these ideas, it kind of boxed them into categories, and it really refined how to think about different things. And turns out everything that I was thinking about had a study behind it. So it just fit. And I continued, and it did really well for me. So I know how to speak the language now of what it is to be a psychologist. And that's helpful. But
this is helpful in brain education.
No, it's not helpful.
Okay.
No, it's helpful to be able to speak to others in the field. Because I don't think I speak in psychology or think that way when it comes to how I deal with people who come to brain education. Diagnoses is not really a thing. It's more like observations, maybe a few inferences, but more a discovery. It's not, I'm looking to find and identify certain things.
And finally to
Brain education. So the whole MBA thing, the funny thing, the postgraduate, you're going to laugh about this. So I was at a time where I worked for a little bit in PR and marketing in the sports sector because I thought, I was doing sports all my life and PR and marketing, community, reaching out to people, and all that kind of stuff. And I even did a lot of events and protocol. And that's where I really got into events as impactful platforms, as channels. Like I really studied how different movements or sports were catalyzed by events. Like when people really saw the possibility of something through an event and then realized that experience changed their trajectory. Yes, you need everybody to kind of build foundations. Like you need to build the centers, you need to build the community platforms. But it really could have been a pivotal moment if that person had experienced a moment themselves where they changed trajectory. So experiencing things, I call those events, so that's why I really got into events in a big way. But I got into the States and my postgraduate degrees because I wanted to pursue my fighting career because I was a competitive athlete. And the only reason why I turned to fighting is because I was jealous of the athletes that trained more and harder than I did. I wanted to train more. There was a certain high I get from training specifically when it came to pushing your boundaries and seeing what could come out of you. And that to itself was a thrilling experience for me. I really felt like, to this day, I mean, brain education, one of the elements that brain education gives me is the surprise without it being a surprise. Like somehow deep inside you really know it's there. But the fact to come to face with it and realize it, so you've seen it already, but to come see it again in another platform, which is this reality, you're like, wow, it really does happen. That is thrilling. That self-discovery is amazing. It's incredible. It's a euphoric experience. So I wanted to feel more. I wanted to be enthralled. And I couldn't do it from training regularly as a recreational athlete. So I wanted to become a professional athlete. So America and my education was the ticket just to be in the right place.
To be a professional.
Yeah, and compete in the right arenas, right? And I did. It was good. So my student degree was just kind of like my hajj. Exactly. But I needed to do something, so might as well be useful. And I was good at business, so I took an MBA. And I wanted to extend my student visa. And that just took another degree so I can stay longer.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was getting scholarships because...
مثل عنا يعني نحن هون عنا بيسجل ماسترز كرمال يهرب من خدمة الجيش
مثلا
انت كنت عم تسجل بعد ماسترز تضل بعد أكثر
to pursue something صح انه الحق شيء. Yeah, you're right. And it's funny because I found brain education along the way, so it became the reason. Like I can't leave
you
this.
You find brain education or brain education finds you? So
the story went like this. I was looking for my school and I landed in Hawaii because my friend was in Hawaii. I was already in California. They said, come over. You're never going to be this close. I said, okay, great. And because I really missed my traditional martial arts away from the competitive stuff. So the yoga, the tai chi, the stuff that really grounded you in discipline, because traditional martial arts are really rare and seldom to find when it comes to the principle, the discipline, the philosophy. That's really seldom to find. It's often about achievements, about accomplishments, أي حزام وصلت, كم سنة قضيت, and that's why Taekwondo failed. You get to a black belt when you're a teenager and then that's it. You're done with technique. And then it becomes a story. كنت ألعب Taekwondo وأنا صغير. So that's it. كنت إجري تصير هيك لا تشوفني لما كنت. So, but when you marry philosophy with technique, there's no ending to it. It becomes relevant at any age. So even if you take the same technique, it means something different to you because of the way you apply it and with what mind you apply it.
That's nice.
Yeah. So that's why philosophy and technique married together is endless. And that's what I think I found with brain education. When I came and looked for those universities, I always looked for a yoga and tai chi place. Googled and found a place that said, we offer yoga and we offer tai chi. I said, great, both in the same place. They were Korean, so it wasn't really yoga. I think they just took on the name for a marketing brand, right? I mean, how do you sell Dan Hak, which is the study of the principles that connect your body and mind? That's not a really sexy title for for a studio. Yeah, yoga is just, you know, yoga. And Tai Chi, but there were like 250 styles of Tai Chi or more. And then this wasn't it. It was a Kukak style of Qigong, which was like a Korean style Qigong. And it's just basically based on the same principles, but more embedding the philosophy into the movement and the technique. So I came in and the movements were familiar because, you know, you swung, you tapped, you shook, you stretched, you pulsed, you vibrated, you rotated, you twisted. So all the ways in which you can manipulate the body were there. They were present. إنه ما كنت مقيد بأي أسلوب معين. وبالعربي ممكن تسميهم تمارين سويدية. إنه بس إنه ما كان شيء مقيود إنه بس stretching. أو بس تقل أو بس كذا. Any way in which you could, but the reason, the purpose behind it was different. We're using the body as a way to open up the mind.
I can tell that easily. I can tell that choosing a brain education, your values and the message that you have intersects with the brain education. I think that's why I always advise people to do what is confounded or that is aligned with their values and ethics.
Right.
You will be delivering in passion, you will be progressing and improving continuously. So I believe that you've chosen brain education for that reason. I'm trying to have
No, I see your point.
a conclusion يعني لأنه you tried many things.
It's like a resonance.
Yeah.
So
as if you have collected components from several places يعني معرفتك بالماركتينج and you hold a masters ومعرفتك بالglobal management
right.
وجمعت من هون شوي من هون شوي من هون شوي مع الethics والvalues it led to brain education. إذا بدنا نختمها منك نصيحة.
So to wrap up, don't think that every education you ever took was ever a loss. Every education, if you're truly following your true path, your true dream, the one that takes everything out of you, you're going to need everything.
بالمسج اللي خلصنا فيها البارت وحكينا عن don't regret and continuously educate yourself, it is a good closure. خلينا نيجي على الشغل. قبل ما بلش انه في عنا مشاكل.
I have this hat. It says the word work. And then people think about work, what a bad like connotation, and work is so negative. I'm like, no, work is the bridge that gets my dream to reality. So this is my dream in action. So let's talk about work.
Let's talk about work. خلينا نحكي شغل. قبل ما نفوت بالتفاصيل project management ونحنا وانت وbrain education, بدي بريفلي كليرلي بشكل واضح ومبسط لأنك كان في experience لإلي أنا وياك إنه بسيشن there is a message behind brain education. شو المسج؟ شو الفلسفي؟ بريف تعالوا ننطلق منها لنحكي project management و how things would fit.
So you have to remember that in essence and in our deepest essence, our message that's stored really inside our brain is to realize that we're here to serve and we're here to help. And realizing that not from information or programming is to realize something very profound in the brain. And even when you look at scientific studies, this really beautiful study about children showed it to me in such a very simple nature. An infant, which doesn't have language, sees an animation of a triangle, a circle, and a square. The circle is trying to climb up the mountain as it rolls up. It's an animation. And the triangle stands in the way of the circle. There's no language. And it stops the circle from going up. Okay. Like clearly there's an obstacle, right? And then it doesn't progress. And it seems to be held in place by the triangle. The triangle disappears. And then the square comes from behind and pushes the circle up the mountain. And then the animation stops. The children are left to choose between two shapes in front of them, the triangle or the square. And more often than not, the children pick the square. That says something.
Good message.
So
اختاروا المربع ونحن كان عندنا دائرة, كان عندنا مثلث.
صحيح.
وكان عم نحاول, كان عم يطلع على الجبل.
بالفطرة موجودة شغلة إنه الطفل عارف إنه هو حابب اللي بيساعد.
اوكي.
And to recognize إنه that's why you're here. And that's what brain education does. إنه تعرف إنه you're here. And this is relating to the philosophy, the message. في شغلة بالثقافة الكردية اسمها هونج إيك. هونج إيك means to widely benefit humanity. يعني the common good. يعني الفايدة للمجتمع بشكل عام اللي هو كمان بيشمل أنت نفسك. So how is this benefiting everyone? Right? And this collectivist society, if you want to call it, is interesting, but it's actually quite intuitive. إنه هذا التصرف شو ما كان تفكيري، نطقي، سلوكي، أفعالي، أقوالي، أي شيء، حتى مشاعري، هل هيدا عم بيفيدني بس إلي ولا عم بيفيد المجتمع؟ ومين عم تحمي؟ عم تحمي حالك ولا عم تحمي المجتمع؟ Or are you doing both? So this collective good of knowing that your value is not uniquely just based on you. You are everyone. And everyone is you. وإنه هذا الآخر اللي كمان عم بينضر من تصرفك، من أقوالك، من فعلك. وهل ممكن توسع الدائرة مش بس بين الإخوة اللي حول منك، مجتمعك، قبيلتك، مدينتك، بلدك. Can you go wider? And this is also recognizing your value. You know, what do you represent on this planet? The wider you go, the more essence you get closer للمصدر اللي هو الرسالة. إنه cultivating character. Brain education is here to help you cultivate character. كيف احنا ممكن نبني إنسان ذو قيم. Character. Because that is what we measure, the KPI.
Yes, the KPI.
The KPI by behavior.
Okay.
On what makes you a beneficial human being.
Yes. ده أنت مفيد لنفسك ولا المجتمع.
Correct.
Perfect. So بالproject management usually نحن في عنا هيدول فيك تقول مجموعة من ناس، خطر بالي أقول قرطة ناس مجموعين بس تزبط.
There's that charm, huh?
So في مجموعة من الأشخاص اللي هن مجموعة يعني موجودين لتحقيق هدف معين بالproject management. نحن عادة هذا التعريف بعد بيلحقوا a little bit explanation about what is a project management from your perspective من وجهة نظرك من هالفلسفة ومن هالاديشن هالإضافة اللي أنا قدمتها. أنت بوجهة نظرك شو هي إدارة المشاريع؟ شو هو الproject management?
Well, when you say this, the number one idea that comes to mind is what's the biggest project you could be working on in your life? That's the question. Answer?
Myself.
Correct. And that's what I think is the best project you could possibly work on to manage. Because if you manage yourself well, you could probably manage any project which is an extrapolation of yourself. احكينا فيها إنه لما الواحد يكون عنده مبادئ خاطئة and it's actually destructive. فهو حابب يحسن بالعالم, but he feels he needs to get rid of people to do it. So there's no collaboration, there's competition. So هذه المبادئ ممكن تكون خاطئة. You give that person more power and more authority, they're only going to destroy the world more. مش إنه عنده قدرة وقوة أكتر إنه هو حيقدر يعمل أحسن, because the foundation is all wrong. So self-management is also connected to self-discovery. Am I managing from a place that is righteous, benevolent? هل أنا نقول عم بصلح حالي, عم أكون صالح بأفعالي بأقوالي, هل عم أكون مخلص أو حتى إنه بخشوع إنه عم براقب نفسي ولا لا, إنه where is this coming from? So you can't really distinguish too greatly or separate out self-management from self-discovery. And that's what brain education is for, because if you decide on something, where is it coming from? For you to get rid of this person, or to eliminate this choice, or to stop doing something and start doing another, are you getting in the way of the wider good? Okay. And why is it about you? This is really important to recognize, because لما الواحد يقرر من their own self-interest, we have a destructive world based on competition. And if they think that's the right interest, then are you really honest with yourself in knowing that this is the right interest for everyone. ومش شرط انه تاخد آراء الجميع، بس على الأقل تعرف حالك انه هيدا المصدر من خوف because you're afraid of failing, so you took that decision. So is that really helping everybody? Your fear making the decision for you? And then you come to self-management again, because is your fear managing you? Or are you managing the fear?
Managing the fear. Sounds good. So the project management أول شيء I have to لازم أنا أدير نفسي، أنا
Correct.
المشروع الأساسي.
Correct.
طيب من من الاكسبيرينس تاعولتي من التجارب، إذا بدنا نحكي عن مشروع عم ينعمل ب culture وحدة أو ب community وحدة أو ب cross cultural environment، المشاكل هي ذاتها المشاكل. يعني إذا مشروع عم ينعمل ببيروت، في مشاكله بتشبه المشاكل اللي عم تصير بالدوحة، بتشبه المشاكل اللي عم تصير بجدة، بتشبه المشاكل اللي وين ما كان عم تصير. وباي ذا واي
دوحة قطر مش دوحة الحوس.
لا
كثير بعدت.
وعلى فكرة انه بالتريننجز اللي انا بعطيهم اوقات بيكون في عندي اشخاص عم يجوا مثلا من the United Kingdom، من the US. they share with me نفس المشاكل، انه نحن عندنا تأخير بكذا، اجاني client demanding و pushy، كان عندي colleague aggressive، بحس اوقات انه my productivity is low، اليوم ما إلي جلادة الشغل. هدول القصص اللي بنمرق فيهم عادة. رح نروح one by one. تمام. وراح اقول لك رح نتبادل وجهات النظر بهذا الموضوع. اولا نحن في عنا big title هن the productivity rate أو the productivity of the person. أنا إنتاجيتي قديش أنا قادر أعمل إنتاجية.
That's the result you want to achieve.
بالضبط. أنا بالآخر بدي أحسن الإنتاجية. شو العوامل اللي ممكن توصل إنه عندي أنا team member ما عم يقدر يعمل إنتاجية جيدة؟ From a management point of view منروح على brain education.
Correct.
From a management point of view نحن بنقول مثلا ما عنده clear vision أو ما عنده clear understanding، ما عنده the enough skills to do the job and to be productive. He is يعني في influence من مشاعره على أدائه وعلى مهاراته، فاليوم ما كانت إنتاجيته منيح بس هو بالعادة منيح. So نحن هدول عادة بيكونوا the root causes اللي بنحاول نبلش نعالجهم بطرق العلاقة ب team building member building. From a brain education, and you are a master in and an educator، كيف ممكن شخص يكون عنده low productivity يحسن the productivity تعود؟
Okay, so that's a very loaded question, but the final is pretty straightforward. So I say loaded because انت قلت عن ال KPIs اللي هم النتائج مثل productivity، مثل النجاح، success rate، really measurable metrics، يعني that's no problem. بس العجيب المشاكل اللي انت عم تواجهها او هن حددوا لك اياها هي obstacles بتخص شو؟ سلوك، behavior. So it's funny that your metric which is based on performance, in the end the obstacle is still human behavior. انه aggressiveness, tendencies of habit, addictions of some trait. I'm not saying substance abuse. No, I'm not saying substance abuse. I'm saying like you're addicted to how you do things, and then you need to revise yourself, which is in the end still assessing your own behavior. Really, what we call ceaseless self-observation. تكون يعني دقيق بالمراقبة، مراقبة النفس. So raising people's awareness of their own behavior, having them not learn anything, because it's an education, because you're bringing out an awareness. It's not putting in something new. إنه هو عنده هيدا اليقظة إنه oh, that's what I'm doing, and it's not helping. That's an awakening. That's not a learning. Because learning is a result of information, but information never changed anything.
Okay.
Awakening to a truth, هيدا اليقظة الاستنارة as بسميها, if you want to go really in my realm of enlightenment, that's all it is. It's a realization, because human brains have two skills that they can do better than any species on the planet: introspection, تدبر, تمعن, ولآخره, creativity. إنه أنت تكون مبتكر. Because a dog can't say I will fast this next month and it's for this reason. That requires introspection. And to create a solution as to how I'm going to get this right means to come out from nothing. Because the opposite of creativity is experience.
Okay.
If you know it, is it really creative? Did you really create something profound? Humans can do that. That's our intelligence. That's our ability. And if you're not exercising that ability to create new solutions for yourself, you're not truly being human.
Okay.
تخيل. And so I'm calling you something else if you're not truly being creative.
خسرت الصفة.
You lost your power and you need to retrieve it, your value, and the thing that makes you most human. فإذا احنا جينا لهالbehavior, how can you create a new solution? ابتكار بحل جديد للتصرف إذا فعلا أدركت إنه هذا الشيء ما عم ينفعني. It's not a healthy system, it's not a productive system, it's not a creative system, وما عم بينفع المحيط اللي أنا فيه. وهل أنت عم تفكر بس بحالك ولا كمان بالمحيط اللي أنت فيه؟ You have to reassess your values. You have to reassess your purpose, which comes back to the purpose point. دايما بآمن إنه your brain is so powerful, too powerful an engine to be aimless. There's no point in being better. For what? ليه? Better for what? What vision are you achieving in being better? Stronger? There's no end to strength. Every generation of Olympian or weightlifter has superseded the previous generation. We keep excelling ourselves in how much better we get. But for what reason? You know, if it's not for something, then it's nothing at all. You might as well just be on a train of excelling, heading nowhere fast. So that assessment, that awareness of vision, of direction, is about self-management. For someone like what you described, this person who is angry, who hasn't been heard in a long time, are they aware of that? Is it everyone's fault? Are you living as a victim? Or can you take more charge of your own condition? وتعرف إنه هي عواطفك ملكك، أفكارك إلك. And why are you letting so much affect you? And if you think that I can't live life without having affected, then you haven't really woken up to the fact that after something happened, everything that happens after that is all you.
لذيذ الكلام. بس خليني أقول لك أكتر in practice شو الوضع. هذا الكلام حلو. هذا الكلام خلينا نحكي به. راح يجيب لايك وشير وكبس كبس كبس. تمام؟
You need that too.
كتير لذيذ. بس خدني practice. يعني أنا اليوم مثلا بقول له إنه مع باللو productivity لما يكون عندك مشكل أنت لازم يكون عندك مثل ما أنت كنت عم تقول إنك أنت تدرك وين نقاط ضعفك، تعالج نقاط ضعفك، تشتغل عليهم. يلي لحظة، ما أنا إذا بعرف نقاط ضعفي مش جاي لعندك.
So let's take a really practical approach.
خلينا ناخد practical approach.
So
this is what
say for example, someone like you said, you gave me a picture. I'm going to draw the picture differently.
Okay.
So you gave me a picture of someone إنه هو ما عم بيعطي أداء منيح، ممكن يعطي أكتر.
صح.
هيدا بنظرتك as a
project manager.
Manager.
Yes.
Manager. Right.
Okay.
But what's his view?
Okay.
Switch the script. If I get raised, if I work harder, I'm not going to earn any more. And this company says they're about 1, 2, 3, 4. But that's only what they say. So you think he's not in line with your vision. So also question your management. Is your vision being communicated? And not communicated in words. Is everyone piloting the vision through their actions? Are you being a true ambassador of the philosophy that you preach? So one thing that you should also be doing in approaching companies is if your expectation, because you say management, right? Yes. Managing expectations, عن هذا الشخص is they need to do this. How is this being communicated? And how are you embodying that communication? ولا هي بس أقوال وفلسفة حلوة تنطبع على البوسترز اللي بيشوفوا إنه أنت مرق الطريق. A lot of our companies that come to us, they say we say we're all about holistic well-being, we're about balance, but we never actually do it. And so they come to me مثل مأزق إنه تا حللنا هالمشكلة، إنه كيف بدنا نريح موظفيننا ليقدروا يشتغلوا أحسن، ونقول إنه إحنا we are healthy بكل معنى الكلمة، نفسيا بدنيا ذهنيا. ف they come to me to solve that, but that's because they're not embodying بتناغم قيما. So this could be a management issue because you're easy to say he's not doing.
صح.
سهل جدا. ف you need to also shift the perspective. That's what brain education teaches you. If you only see it from your perspective, you're not doing it هونجيك. You're not doing it widely benefiting. لازم نشوفها من نظرية تانية. تاني شغلة. Let's go back to this person. So his motivations are out of place. And he could be right. But let's say, rather than focus on the problem, what about the possibilities? Because I told you I don't think like a psychologist. A psychologist tries to solve problems. I try to show you your power. There's a difference. Because if I try to keep helping you solve your problems, problems never stop. You'll keep coming to me. I want you to leave me after having found your power. So what that means is, أنا كيف بدي أمكنه? If you're not giving him his motivation, he needs to find it himself. مش هيك؟
صح.
إنه ليش غيره are self-motivated. Management always looks for self-autonomous, self-imploring people. But that's not something that you just find out of nowhere. You can train that. There's a part in your brain that actually builds resilience by doing the things you don't like, but you have to know what you're doing them for. There has to be a reward. I want this. So if you give him a taste, wake him up to the truth that he has, like what we do in brain education, you building capacity. فلما أنا قدرت أريحك, great. Relieving the stress is one thing, but what if I gave you ways in which you can not only relax your brain, but increase your focus? That distance, the more it brings, the more capacity he feels. So then, بيرجع براجع حاله. صح إنه أنتو you're not communicating well, and you're not passing on the message. But if he says, I feel like I can do more now. So rather than saying no to the promotion, he can say, let me try. Maybe I do well, and then they give me the raise. But it takes a person with the threshold and the capacity to think like that, to think I could get something in turn for me giving first.
ايه بس هيدي بتأثر يعني هيدي لها علاقة بالmotivation factor.
Correct, but it's not just motivation. Look, the motivation is what comes as a result. It's a symptom. It's not the cause. People think that motivation is the cause for their actions. No. They have to have the possibility to realize something that they see themselves clearly. If you showed someone their power, that they can exceed their own expectations of themselves and then prove themselves wrong, they're thinking wrong, then they're going to think a lot differently from how they used to. إذا أنا مرنتك وحطيتك بتمرين ذهني وجسدي وبنفس الوقت أنت قدرت تفوق على حالك, what are you going to think next? What else can I do?
ليش الجسم هو المكان اللي عم تدرب فيه العقل؟
I love this question so much.
عن جد إنه يعني أنا I got the experience شوي مش كتير.
Because it's called brain education.
بس إنه ليش through the body؟ ليش من خلال جسمك أنت بتمرن عقلك؟
Where's your brain?
هون عم بالراس.
Is that all that your brain is connected to?
لا أكيد.
So where else is your brain connected?
To all لكل جسمي.
So where does the brain stop and the connection begin? Where can you say at what point can you say this is where the brain stops and this is where the connection starts? Answer?
Infinite. ما في بداية.
So can you really distinguish between the separation point of where your brain stops and the connection starts? Can you say that the nerve endings that are connected to your brain are also your brain?
مفروض.
So then everything's your brain.
Yes.
So I am training your brain.
Your brain. Okay.
It's called brain education because the body is the brain. There's no separation, because if there was a connection, they would have to be separate. But if you call it a connection, they'd be separate. You're connecting two separate things. But we're not saying they're different, and we're not saying they're disconnected. We're saying they're the same thing. And it's called brain education because your mind can change. اليوم خفت, بكرة تشجعت, قرارك اتغير. But for a brain to change, it requires action. A real change means action, execution. show me what's in here out there. Show me what's up here down here. That's training your brain.
interesting. عن جد interesting. السؤال اللي هلا خطر ببالي صراحة aggressive people. قلت انت انه هن ممكن يكون عندهم مخاوف، ممكن يكون عندهم عوامل أثرت عليهم وهذا، بس في some of these aggressive people بيبرروا هيدا الشيء. ليش انت aggressive؟ ما هو ما بيفهم الا بهالطريقة.
correct.
تمام. وهيدا الفلسفي of sharing and the community بمجتمع مثل مجتمعنا ومجتمعاتنا اللي هو للأسف نحن لا نملك ثقافة to be blunt وكلير وترانسبيرنت. نحن بالعالم في عنا عدة ثقافات أو عنا أكثر من ثقافات، بس أنت ذكرت جزء منهم. عنا إيسترن وويسترن، الشرقي والغربي. مثلا بيقول لك إنه الإيسترن كولكتيفيستس بيحبوا الكوميونيتي I read this in the management theories, and when you serve the community you are
it's easy for them to say that because they're one race. To be a devil's advocate, but it's easy to say, oh, we help everyone when everyone looks the same, right?
وعندك الويسترن سايد individualistic ونحن قاعدين بالنص. والله يعني انت تعال اليوم في عندك حدا بيقول لك انا بدي اعمل وبدي ساوي وفي عندك حدا بيقول لك لا بدنا نعمل كلنا سوا. هذا في عنا خبصة، في عنا مشكلة. how can we use our powers. على فكرة بالproject management نحن ما بنسميهم، بطلنا نسميهم interpersonal skills و personal skills، صرنا نسميهم power skills.
Wow, that's cool.
It is one of the segments. It is one of the segments of the effective project manager.
Okay.
To have power skills. شو power skills that we may use other than إنه أنا عارفين إنه شو مشكلته لهذا الشخص وفاهمين كيف بدي أتعامل معه، كيف أنا بدي أكون a good recipient أتلقى هذا الشيء، وكيف بدي أعمل response بشكل جيد. لأنه أنا بنسأل هذا السؤال كتير. مديري حدا تقيل دم، مديري حدا demanding وبوشي ومدري شو، كيف بدي اتعامل معه بوجهة نظركم as PMP؟ بنروح part emotional intelligence interpersonal skills وبيني وبينك عم نحكي.
Where does that lead you? Like what? No, when you teach them emotional intelligence and personal skills, like where does that bring them?
To deal with the people, to manage.
Sorry, I'm the one asking you.
No, it's okay. بالعكس تمام. نحن بس نعلمهم emotional intelligence not in depth بس with enough tools to face the problems. It leads them to shield themselves and to respond with an alignment and integration with the project objectives and the other things.
I'm sorry.
وقال لك بكل صراحة.
أنا
مثلا كتير من الإجابات اللي بتجيني بيقولوا إنه مثلا لازم نكون we absorb the shock ونعرف نتعامل معه ونقدر نشوف من وراها انه هذا يمكن جالس، هذا يمكن عنده فير، عنده كذا. بس صدقني باغلب الحالات المشكله بتكون انه هذا الشخص ما برد على الشخص اللي مقابله ان كان مديره او غيره لانه بده المعاش، لانه بده شلت، بده يدفع للشلتر، بده يدفع للفود، عنده سيفينجز، عنده كريدتس، عنده اخبار كتير بده يخلصها. So how can this fit together?
You know, it's interesting. I'm gonna first I had a thought in mind, but I'm gonna put it aside because I just had something. So I'm in Lebanon, and this had to be the toughest year managerially for me of my life, because I had to learn a culture that, even though it was my own, wasn't my own by practice or إنه ما ربيت فيه. فيمكن لك أنت أو لهجتي شوي أخذتها من الوالد ومن الوالدة، بس إنه ثقافتي الذهنية مش شرط إنه هي مطابقة تماما مع الثقافة اللبنانية. بس أكيد إنه عشاني عشت معهم باخد منها شوي. اللي بدي وصلك إياه هو في كتير أشياء أنا واجهتها بالتوظيف، because أنا فلسفتي إنه why are you focusing on material gain to do something this important or this valuable, right? So I had to understand إنه شو المحفز للشخص اللي ماخد مبلغ وقدره لنقول. So I pay them reasonably, but there are better paying jobs obviously, and they can say they're very lucky compared to the average Lebanese at their age and their position وإلى آخره, to be very practical and blunt. بس حتى أنا لاحظت بشغلة بالبداية they were looking to protect themselves. Okay? And I'll share my personal thing. They were looking to protect themselves. Some of them came in believing in the message and the mission وحطوا المادة على جنب طالما هن أكلين شاربين مبسوطين. No problem. بس في منهم لا. They have some serious issues and circumstances. They're not with their parents. They're living completely independently. And they're young. And they have to be responsible like someone who's 10 years older than their actual age. And take care of themselves. فأي مخاطرة أخدوها بيأكلوها.
صح.
Yeah, it's a real problem. But when I question, why are you coming in because عم تتشرط إنه أدفع لك هالقد وهالقد, right? Say your price. I negotiate down based on reason because maybe someone else is being paid more or less than you and I can't pay more than that. But then I wonder if their motivation or drive. So this is a problem from the start. My main thing, like for me, like how I was almost assessed in I need to do this for the sake of impact, not for the sake of gaining something at the end and saying I have this much in my bank account. But everyone I hire has to be under that principle as well. They need to know that they're doing something of profound value. Okay? بالبداية لاحظت إن عليهم إنه هن كانوا مترددين وقالوا خلينا فريلانس. وأنا قلت ليش بده فريلانس؟ عشان يقبض أكتر ويكون عنده الحرية وما بده يفوت ياكلها because he doesn't want to depend on me. I said I don't hire except full-timers. So I'm sorry, but you have to be full-timers. They come back later because I invite them onto a project. And I say, I'll pay you for this much. We'll try you out under a lesser salary. But let's see if you like us and we like you. Can you do that? So the term is clear. Expectations are set. You're with me on for this project. This is your pay. And then we could say bye and we could say, let's keep going. What they find out is when they come back to their fears or insecurities اللي هو مثل هيداك اللي بيعصب ومحس هو الضحية اللي مفعول به بيرجعوا بيراجعوا اللي صار and they felt safe, like they were valued, like they were cared for, like it really was about the work, like he was honest when he said he cares for the work. He's not going to criticize me unless it's to do with my work, not me, my work. His values are set clear.
كنت عم تقول انه امبارح كان في experience with an innovative idea that BME is bringing. انه you can scan, and I did this, I went through the experience. You scan the motion or the vibes or the waves and you can analyze with some charts. It is turning not only يعني brain, it is also scientific.
It's pretty cool.
I will describe a little bit about مدير مشروع شو بيتعرض لضغوط وبدي أعرف منك كيف لازم يكون شكل البرين تعوده، لأنه أنت من شوي قلت إنه عبد الله بيزبط يكون بروفيشنال أثليت. تمام. فأنا عم لك في مدير مشروع اللي شو راح يزبط معه وراح ياخد حصرا بالكونستراكشن فيلد لأنه مثل ما بيقولوا بملعبي وعجب بين جمهوري. شوف، مدير المشروع هو الشخص اللي عم يعمل proper communication and management بين top level و bottom level. عنده مشروع في له أهداف، في عنده وقت محدد، في budget limited، عنده مجموعة من أعضاء الفريق اللي بيحملوا مهارات معينة وعم بيساعدوه يتقدم بالمشروع ويعمل يحقق الأهداف تاعولة المشروع. هيدا مدير المشروع. عنده ضغط كمان من الزبون، ونحن كلنا طبعا بس يكون عم نشتغل مع stakeholders في عنا طلبات وتوقعات expectations من الزبون. ففيك تقول انه يا شكله مثل سلايس الهامبرجر عم ينعصر من الميلتين من فوق ومن تحت، او انه قاعد بقلب سفير وعم ياكل ضغط من كل الميلات. هيدا مدير المشروع، شو خصائص البرين تاعوته؟
there could be so many. يعني ممكن فعلا يعني ممكن تكون عناصر كتيرة عم تلعب. I'd have to take a closer look. يعني الحلو بالسكانينج اللي انت حكيت عنه اللي هو ال EEG neurofeedback scanner انه بورجينا موجات الشخص وعاداته، إذا هو بيلجأ أكتر لتفكيره أو لعواطفه أو قديش هي عاطفته ممكن تتأثر، لنقول إذا كانت معلومة فاتت براسه. وطبعا العوامل اللي بتأثر على سلوكه وقراراته حسب عواطفه هيدي كلها ممكن نكشفها. وهيدا الحلو بالابتكار التكنولوجيا اللي احنا اللي معنا، انه احنا ممكن نشخص الشخص وتصرفه على حسب قراءات من موجاته الدماغية. الأهم من هيك من التشخيص اللي هو كيف ممكن يلجأ إنه again not focusing on the condition but what can be, the possibility, the power. بس إذا أنا قدرت إنه أركلج على اللغة اللبنانية، أركلج موجاته إنه هو قدر يتحكم فيهم، إنه أوكي يمكن عنده تفكير زايد but maybe he doesn't know that that's his condition، إنه تفكيره دايما زايد. أوكي ما عم بيحس. يعني you're describing many situations عن ناس غضبانين لو فهم لو but that's separatism. Maybe you needed just empathy and then realizing that you're not that different from the person in front of you. If you can solve it for yourself, you can solve it for the person in front of you. That's what empathy can bring you. You know, you and I are not that different, and that gives you so much more insight than if you just looked at it from a third person point of view. كقصة حكاية إنه أنت مأثر على صعيد الفردي، فإذا أنت عرفت تحل مشكلتك ممكن عارف تحل مشكلته. That's what empathy brings. So it's a very powerful tool. Power tools, right?
Yes.
But if he didn't know that he wasn't moving his brain in that way, then maybe we can move his brain in that way, make it more flexible. Merin, versatilize his brain. Maybe he's relying too much on logic for an illogical problem. I mean, this guy could just have a trauma from when he was a kid. And, you know, كل the stakeholders, they're just projecting their insecurities. إنه هن basically they're acting like children. كيف بدك تتعايش أو بدك تتفاهم مع عدم الفهم تبعهم؟
شكرا.
No, I tell people it's so funny how you try to justify a childhood irrational problem with the irrationality of adulthood. It doesn't work. Yani that's just how your parents knew to train you, to raise you. They didn't know better. So why are you trying to rationalize or justify something that was already irrational? It doesn't work. You just have to come to radical acceptance. تتقبل فيها زي ما هي. طب كيف ما في منطق؟ طب is logic necessary؟ وهذا معتقد. And can you be flexible enough to let go of this? So that's why it comes back to training him, your manager. إنه يتخلى عن هالمعتقد. Do you know how much easier his life would be to live and be okay with contradiction? إنه الحياة ماشي هيك بس هيدا غير. Okay, هيدا غير. No justification required, no understanding, because understanding would mean you need to use existing information. What if you don't? What if you're humble enough to admit you don't have the information to analyze this? Can you be that humble? Can you overcome that much ego to say you don't have the answers? And what about self-acceptance or forgiveness? إنه أنت غلطت، جربت شيء ما بتعرف تشتغل. هل أنت لازم تكون دقيق و perfectionist لدرجة إنه ما تغلط؟ I'm sure that someone who's more successful than you has probably made more mistakes than you. Right. And so they're more willing to make the mistake because they're more willing to get over themselves for the sake of the success. So how do I train you to do that? You have to get over yourself. So information that you have to assess something, that's based on past. What if it's something you don't have? Can you see that far? فالمعتقد الأفكار اللي احنا بنحلل فيها الناس وحتى أنفسنا, maybe you just need to accept that you don't have it all and you don't need it all. Just accept. And when you come to accept, moving on will be much quicker. You can focus on solutions, not solving problems, because the problem is your target. Stop focusing on the problem. I told you, you think the problem is more money, security, but that security can be expanded. It can have multiple meanings. Now we're thinking solution. Now we're being creative. If I gave him enough tools to create the means, he can make his own security.
Sounds cool.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, sounds cool.
That's only the way it sounds.
Yeah.
It feels better.
Sounds cool. لا, I have to accept it. You said that. I have to accept it.
Yeah.
You have a point. You have يعني في وجهة نظر في منطق بالكلام. وبعدك عم تقول I don't have to criticize. I don't have مش لازم أنا لا انتقد مش إنه مش لازم. بدي I have to receive. بدي أتقبلها. بدي أخذ. I have to consider it one of the means. يعني أنت هلا اليوم عم تسلمني tool جديد. إنه إيه أوقات I have to لازم أقبل. لازم أرضى. مين قال إنه بعرف very interesting إنه مين قال إنه لازم كل شيء يكون منطقي. مين قال؟ شغلي كتير تمام. فإنه إيه بخلي at least بتكون أنت you chill. I'm relaxed. أنا بالنسبة لإلي عم زيد layer من الدرع اللي أنا عم بحمي حالي من الانسكيورتيز اللي عم تجي من الناس اللي حوالي. إنه أوكي تمام. أنا كتير بقول تمام. نزيد تمام على التمام.
I mean, look at your health. If you want to come back لصحتك, you'd live much more peacefully with that mindset.
Yeah. I will die peacefully. مش حانجلط وموت.
مش كل شيء بالغصب بالجبر وتتجبر على المشكلة يعني
it is very nice إنه خلينا نفكر بحل هلا مش وقت. أنا usually I say this إنه avoid the blame game. مين غلط؟ اللي يقولي يا للي غلط. طيب شو بدك فيه؟ صارت المشكلة. خلينا نلاقي حل بعدين من علقه. لاحقين عرفت نعمل ساحة شو هذا جديد. أنا بالنسبة لإلي شخصياً نحن أكثر مخلوق معقد على هذه الكرة الأرضية. You have a theory, you have a way, philosophy, you have a way of thinking. I have a different one. لأنه خلقناكم شعوباً وقبائل لتعارفوا. نحن مختلفين عن بعض. Your philosophy بتزبط بمطرح, my perspectives بتزبط بمطرح.
Yeah.
بس you mentioned something interesting عن اليوث. وعم تحضر شيء أنت لليوث.
Yeah.
How can I help and how can I fit?
So we've piloted this program called Heroes, and we call it Heroes because they need to become الأقوياء, the heroes of their life, so that they realize they really are the star of their story. إنه bring the spotlight back on them. معظم الشباب اليافعين المراهقين إنه هن بيطلعوا للحياة بمنظور خارجي. إنه how do I fit in to this? How do I direct or navigate through this circumstance? What do they think? How do I satisfy this standard? Schools, family. عادة الوجهة نظر إنه هن المفعول به. I'm trying to bring the power and the influence back into their hands to realizing they can do a lot more than they think they can and that they believe they can. So حتى تغيير معتقداتهم على أنفسهم. And it's tackling a very big problem both in Lebanon and across the Middle East, really. I mean, a lot of the clinically depressed symptoms that we find in the population is exaggerated. It's higher in youth than adulthood. Where are they getting it from? You know? So we're passing it on. وللأسف they're the most underserved community بين شعوبنا because we're mostly just entertaining them and we have a set lot of standards, you know, get a job, graduate, it's a known rule book, let's say. Culturally هذه ثقافة لنقول عامة عن what they're supposed to do, and there is a rule book, right? But then they know that there isn't really a rule book, but do they know that from information or logic, or do they know that from experience? Can they really believe that? Can they live that? So live as their true value, their innate value. فهذا البرنامج, it's inspired by brain education, but it involves appreciating the environment, learning more about yourself, empowering them with projects that they can do for social action. Hongik, they need to be beneficial to themselves and to others. Even physically, they need to be able to see the change profoundly in themselves, you know, and in any way that you can. عشان يتغلبوا على الصورة هيدي اللي عندهم عن أنفسهم. إنه أنا صبي، أنا بس شاب، أنا صغير، أنا whatever. All of these are then just here. And then can you change that? هل ممكن تخلط هالاشياء بمعلومة جديدة عن أنفسهم؟ هل ممكن يطبقوا على أساسه and prove it wrong? So then you really start to break these mental health issues like depression, because all depression is a false self-image, you know, a mixture of wrong circuitry and wiring between your prefrontal lobe and your limbic system that says you are this way when you're not. So we need to disrupt it. So I'm the disruptor. I'm the disruptive agent, right?
I'm the proud disruptor.
Yeah. I'm really excited about this project. We've piloted it and it's amazing, the impact. Teenagers are contacting us after just a 45-minute session, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months after the session, just one 45-minute session, and saying, هيدي غيرت منظور حياتي كلها. How I talk to my parents, how I see my life, how I'm living, my choices. And I'm astounded at how deep the impact was, because they were deeply moved by something that told them they can believe in themselves again, truly, to believe in belief, like what you said. I want to spread that to all of Lebanon. I want to spread that across the Middle East. I want to create a school for heroes, a character cultivation program, إنه ذو قيم, ذو أخلاق, to really behave as the power that you need to become for yourself, for your family, for your country, for your people, right? And we have some interesting challenges on the way. And I think that we have a good product, but it's about how do we reach, how do we campaign, how do we get buy-in, right? It's not going to be traditional marketing, you know, it's not going to be an Instagram video. Maybe, it might start that way, but how do we get buy-in from parents? How do we get them to believe that this could work for their kids? How do we have them try it so they think, I want this for my kid also? You know, how do we get kids to believe in it? And these, so we've set up, or we're setting up an NGO that helps go to schools directly, and it's one by one, like networks, and then the kids like, oh, I want more of this, and then we're gonna have to create a camp for them. So this idea of building a community and network of schools that can try this, of youth that can subscribe to this idea that they want to become more, if they just want to answer this question of how do I find more purpose in my life? How do I find more meaning to my life? It's not just this. مش هيدي القصة الحكاية اللي مكتوبة اللي أنا عم بمليها ملي الفراغ. No, I could be the one writing the exam. I could be the one setting my own standard. I could be the one deciding on my own education, what format my education takes.
أنا بتصور just taking this clip and spreading it out will make you overcome كل ال challenges.
I hope so.
انت مآمن كتير بالفكرة. بس خليني اقول لك شوي، هذا المشروع الرائع صراحة، انه هلا هو كمان ما بعرف if you inspired this from X-Men.
Yeah, a little Xavier school, right?
ده هي Xavier school وهدول اللي عندهم القوى الخارقة.
Yeah, House of Heroes.
Yes. بس نحن شوف، إذا بدنا نحكي عن لبنان وعن الميدل إيست، نحن في عنا مشاكل، وأكيد أنت you identified a big part of them. أول شغلة الديانة، أنت اللي عم تقدمه ما في enough explanation إنك أنت لا عم تدق لا بإسلام ولا بمسيحي ولا بأي طائفة من هالطوائف ولا بأي كتاب سماوي، أنت عم تجي تشتغل أقله على هذا. هذه أول مشكلة. 2، نحن عنا أعراف وقيم. يعني إذا اليوم مثلا بدي أقول لك بلبنان، ما نبعد كتير، عندك بيروت شمالا، بيروت جنوبا، بيروت شرقا، عندنا diversity ضخمة. بالسعودية بالخليج كمان عندهم their own culture. ففي cultural differences. بتحكي عن الأعراف إنه معقولة هيدا عم بقوي له دماغه، معقولة يجي يقوي ابني علي بكرة ابني يوقف بس بيته ويقول لي لا. so في عنا مجموعة من موروثات عند الأهل ما حتسمح لهم يمكن إنه ياخدوا this step to explore something in you.
It may be scary.
Yes. So أنا بالنسبة لإلي إذا بدي I want to inspire من اللي حكيناهم بخلال الحديث. Go to the end result. بهيدا البروجكت، بالماركتينج بروجكت تاعولك use all the platforms. Instagram, I'm not the expert. You are the expert بالماركتينج. Sorry.
I don't want to claim that title, but I'd like to say that we're doing okay.
I'm perfect. بس أنا بالنسبة لي go to the solution. فرجي نتائج. يعني أنا اليوم كتير بهمني مثلا ماز يجي يقول لي شوف عبد الله get your team لعندي انا راح اضرب لك البرودكتيفيتي تاعولتهم ب 1.25 just I will make them go through these sessions وراح يتحسنوا 25% productivity wise الفوكس عنهم راح يزيد 5% مدري شو. نحن جماعة ارقام والاهل جماعة ارقام، يعني من الاخر قد ايه بدك تربحني؟ انت المسج اللي عم تقدمها كتير رائعة لليوث، وانا بالعكس انا من الناس اللي بقول لك I want to volunteer in this تقدم project management للشباب، ماشي، للي هن هلا من غير شر يعني اول ما بيصير يعرف يحكي له كلمتين بقول لك انا ما بدي اشتغل عند العالم. عنده براسه his business. so انا I would join on this. بس في challenges، في challenges كتير ضخمة انك تقدر تغير الكون. بلشنا حديثنا off the record أنبياء ما غيرت كون. you will did your part، حتعمل الشير تاعولك. بالنسبة لإلي it will be interesting و valuable. أنا I believe كتير بموضوع ال community participation وال community contribution and I'm thinking about the coming generation. شو جايين تعملوا انتو؟ نحن شو سلمناكم دم. هيدا الشيء رح يتجلى شكله بداية. انت عم تقول بدك توصل لسكول، بس انت your first step هو the campaign. حتعمل campaign الكامبس الصيفي الربيع، بدك ينقي الموسم اللي بدك اياه. انا بالنسبة لإلي from my as a project management practitioner و authorization وغيرهم بقية qualifications, you have to start with a clear written vision for the project, the why of the project, why the project is important. شو المشاكل؟ انت هلأ سردت مشاكل بهيدي الدقايق وحلول لإلها وتصوراتك انت لوين بدك تروح، كتبها. start writing this. أنا هيدا الكامبين رح يصير بهيدا التاريخ، بس أكيد بده يكون له فترة تحضيرية قبله. so في بلان. هيدا البلان رح يشمل what to do, how to do, when to do, and how much it cost. And then you start implementing the plan. بس بدك تكون hybrid، يعني you have to show some agility. لأنه يمكن يجيك feedback immediately يغير لك
you need to pivot.
بالضبط you have to pivot. بدك تغير طريقة implementation. ساعتها والله أنا هون لما بدي بيع أو لما بدي أقدم الفكرة أو لما بدي أحكي مع الناس رح يكون الموضوع مختلف بالطريقة أو بالأسلوب. so you have to keep a side of agility تقدر تتحرك فيها للتأقلم وإعادة التموضع. the implementation أكيد you have to identify risks. عندك مجموعة من الضبابية بهذا الموضوع كتير ضخم لأنك أنت مش عارف شو ردة فعل الآخر. يعني أنت اليوم إذا بتروح تعرض الفكرة بالorigin of this philosophy مثلا بالايسترن سايد اوف ذا جلوب، يمكن فكرتك هتكون ابسط بكتير انك انت تقدمها. يمكن موجوده اصلا بالسكولز، موجوده هيدي الفكره بالسكولز، ولما بدك تقدمها هونيك بغير مطرح يمكن الفكره. بس نحن عندنا شويه ضبابيه بالموضوع لانه ما عندنا كتير انفورميشن عنه. so you have to keep things agile. بنفس الوقت you have to stick to your vision and scope. how do you do things? I believe ما رح يكون the best campaign that you will do, but it will be the good start from it لأنت ترجع تعمل accumulation lessons learned وتعمل accumulation outcomes. ورح تسمع منهم بعدك عم تقلي إنه 45 minutes 45 دقيقة ضلوا يحكوا معكم على شهور. شوف كمية الهيدا انت وياهم in contact يمكن for 3 days for 4 days. قديش انت رح تسمع من الأولاد قصص واخبار insecurities ورح تشوف فوارق الطبقات بين الناس. هيدا بيو بيشتغل هيك وهذا بيو بيعمل هيك. هيدول كلياتهم رح يساعدوك لتاني كامبين وثالث كامبين وبعدين توصل لسكول. هاي وجهة نظري from a project management perspective. وعمل لك I'm ready تكون part من هيدا الشيء.
Well, I want to say one thing. My optimization professor in university said at the end of his program, he said, look, I need you to remember one thing, that I taught you optimizations not so that you can optimize any problem, but to recognize when you need a problem to be optimized. That's when you hire me. That's when I recognize people. Like God bestowed on me the gift of recognition, and I think when we were set to meet, I don't take it as an accident. And so God only, when you take everything as an opportunity, and you really believe in what you believe in, nothing really comes by accident, and everything fits in your vision. Everything, whether it's a downside so that you can come up, whether it's an upside so you can propel forward, whether it's a stop so you can slow down. It doesn't matter, but the point is it'll all add to your vision. So something tells me that I needed my problem optimized, and I wasn't the best one for it. So that's my invitation.
And the invitation is accepted. The invitation is accepted. ماز بنورتنا.
Thank you, man.
وشرفتنا. أو كان لقاء رائع جدا. بعالم تعرفنا عليه عن جد بشكل أوضح أكتر، لأنه هذا العالم كان معروف إنه الروحيات والماورائيات وهدول الجماعة بيقعدوا بيعملوا يوغا ودنيا ومدري شو وترحل الروح. تعرفنا أكتر إنه it is about العقل، قوة العقل، قديش العقل بيقدر بعد يوصل لمطارح، بس نحن بدنا guide to explore more about the powers that we hold. بتشكرك على حضورك، بتشكرك انت والتيم على the dedication وعلى follow up you kept on showing care, and this is part of the message that you deliver in BME. الكلمة الأخيرة لك، تفضل.
Just gratitude. That's what I'm genuinely filled with. ربنا اللي خالق واللي خلق فينا القدرة إنه إحنا نقدر نقدر ونخلق كمان لأنفسنا. And for you and your team for receiving us, for accepting our invitation in kind to experience something, because I think the best selling tool we have is the experience. So I'm happy that you received it well, and thank you for having me.